It's a spy. Oh well.
Hey, Fire Emblem character guide. Watch. Hey guys, and welcome back to another character guide. As you just saw, we're talking about Lon'qu today. Now, he's one of my favorite characters in the top 10. He's really funny, he's really interesting, and he's really freaking cool. He's a total badass. So, why am I bummed about today? I'm bummed because he sucks. And this makes me very sad. Makes me sad and should make you sad. It should make all of you sad because Lon'qu is awesome, and unfortunately, his class selection is just pitiful. Now, he's funny, and I like him because he has a crippling fear of women that is due to a tragic accident in his backstory that you can find out by having him have a support conversation with Tharja, and to some extent, I believe Cordelia, I want to say. No, Pan. Him and Pan have an interesting conversation that doesn't actually talk about the backstory much, but it does involve it. So there's a lot of cool stuff about this character. I really enjoyed learning about him. He's one of my favorites, but his class selection is terrible, as we'll learn about him. For now, let's move on to his stats and maximum stat modifiers.
Alright guys, so here we're taking a look at Lon'qu's stats, as we always do, because that's what we do here, and now we're going to take a look at them one by one. HP doesn't matter, as we've been over. It's pretty average, but like really, it's so high that it doesn't even matter. Strength is pretty freaking good, and is one of his stronger suits. I always kind of assumed since he was a Myrmidon, he would have low strength, but that's a bad assumption. He has good strength. Mediocre magic, not really important. He won't be using it. What? 50 skill, 50 speed. Okay, that's ridiculous. Literally, that is the highest in the entire game. The only other person who can even get close is Pan. She has the same. She has 50 skill as well, and they can both turn into assassins, which have the highest skill bonus. So yeah, technically, they can have 80% chance to get skill. If they had aptitude, they could literally have a 100% chance, but skill doesn't matter anyway. Oh, it does matter. Shut up, Jacob. Seriously. Speed, same thing. Super freaking good. Luck, actually surprisingly good. I am pleasantly surprised. I was not expecting that. Defense, crap. No, it's not. It's okay. Defense is actually fairly good, and resistance is decent. Not good at all, but not the worst ever. Unfortunately, they both have a -2 penalties to their maximum stat modifiers, which is really unfortunate. And the bonuses to skill and speed are kind of not that great either. So his bonuses leave a lot to be desired, but his stats himself aren't too bad. The best, if you take a quick look at his classes available, you'll see he doesn't have a lot of classes. A lot of them overlap, and a lot of the stats overlap, so there's not a lot to choose from. But the best growth rates for him are undoubtedly in the Wyvern Rider Lord class, Wyvern Rider and Wyvern Lord class, because it gives him a bigger bonus strength, which he could always use, and a smaller, in exchange, a smaller bonus to skill and speed, which he doesn't need as much. Plus, that bonus to defense is great, and it will always help. So basically, it would be really nice if we could get him into Wyvern Rider for a couple levels, huh? I wonder if that's ever going to come up in this guide. Let's move on to the classes now, huh?
Lon'qu's classes are his biggest downfall, which is unfortunate because it's also the most important thing in Fire Emblem Awakening. So characters such as DLC characters are obviously all going to be at a very high level of awesomeness because they have access to all the classes like my unit. Now, my unit's still strictly better though because he has support conversations, and that means he can, actually get bigger like dual strike bonuses and stuff like that, and those are seriously important, as I talked about in my top 10 things to know about Apotheosis. There's actually like 5 to 8 things, but you get the idea. Anyway, so Basically, the problem with Lon'qu is his classes, as I just said. His classes are, as you saw, Myrmidon, Thief, and Wyvern Rider. The problem with this is that Myrmidon and Thief both promoted into one of the same classes. They both promoted into Assassin, as well as Trickster for Thief and Swordmaster for Myrmidon. And this is really unfortunate because it means he loses out on a class, and he really needs all of them he can get. Now, let me just briefly go over why this isn't a good thing, why these aren't good. Assassin doesn't have any skills that are really that good. Unless you're planning to build a character completely around lethality, and Lon'qu can't really do this, it's kind of garbage. Pass is not very good. Lucky 7 is probably the best hit and evasion bonus in the game at giving you plus 20 for the first 7 turns, but it's still not that good, especially in the end game, which is kind of what I tried to build for, because everyone hits anyway and it doesn't even matter. So the plus 20%, plus 20, it is percent actually, isn't really going to make any difference whatsoever. And the Trickster's other skill, Acrobat, which lets you move through spaces unhindered by terrain costs. Really? No, but his and Swordmaster has some cool stuff. It has Swordfare, which you could argue that you should use, maybe, but it's plus 5 strength at best. So, Astra is probably his best skill, which is kind of sad because I don't even put it in a lot of my builds. So, I am really sad about Lon'qu. His other class that he does have access to is the Wyvern Rider trait, which gives you Wyvern Lord and Griffin Knight Rider. I don't even remember. Anyway, so. These classes are okay, but they don't have any good skills, really. Deliverer is handy and probably the best of the bunch. And breaker skills, that's just such as Sword Breaker and Lance Breaker for Wyvern Lord and Griffin Rider, respectively, are only good in very specific conditions, and I would probably only recommend getting one of them in the build I'm talking about. The last one, Quick Burn, is basically a worse version of Lucky 7 that lasts slightly longer and doesn't give you as much stuff. So, what does that leave us with? My preferred build here is taking, of course, Limit Breaker. Another good skill that I failed to mention earlier is a unpromoted skill that Myrmidon has called Vantage. I've probably talked about this a million times, but if you have less than half health, he will attack first. This is good. This is very good. It's super helpful. And on this kind of character, it's absolutely essential. So, Limit Breaker, Vantage, Astra. Astra is the next skill that I want to talk about. It's really good. It activates when it activates in combat when you attack. If you have it rolled a what do you percentile die. Why am I telling you all this? Don't you know this already? Whatever. I suppose I'll tell you this. Explain it once more for those of you who may be new. Astra, you take your skill, you divide it in half, and then that is the percent chance that that skill will activate. And if it does activate, it deals 5 attacks at half damage, and all of them are able to crit. So it's really smart to use a killing edge with Lon'qu under this build, because then you can get like, let's see, if he does 10 damage normally and 5 on an Astra hit, he'll do 5 Astra hits, and that would normally be 2.5 times the normal damage, or 25 damage. Now, that's pretty good, but if he crits on, say, 3 of them, that's 15, 15, 15. That's already 45, 50, 55 with the added damage from the non-critical hit attacks. That's 55 damage. If he just critical hit it with his normal attack, he'd only deal 30 damage. So you can see Astra gets exponentially better as you have higher and higher crit. So Astra, crit chance work very well together. I highly, highly recommend working towards both of these on him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have Wrath or anything like that, so he can't really get all the bonuses from it, but still, it's worth trying, I guess. You just have to work with what you get on Lon'qu here. So you definitely want Astra. Other than that, there's not a lot whole else. That's 3 skills so far in case you were counting. The last couple are kind of up to you. I think Swordfare is a good option because he doesn't have the best strength ever, but even if you cap it, it will still be somewhat helpful. Alternatively, All Stats plus 2 is a good option, which is a DLC skill in the first pack of DLC, I do believe, and this increases all of his stats by 2, and it's pretty freaking decent. The other thing I want to mention, though, is Lance Breaker. because assuming he's going to be using swords at the end, this is going to be a very helpful skill, so they won't get destroyed by lances, and he'll be able to take out both lance users and axe users really easily, which leaves him vulnerable to swords, ironically enough. So anyway, then I guess you could use a freaking superior edge and then just beat everyone. That'd be pretty hilarious, actually.
Alright, now we're going to take a look at all of his class options and try to figure out the best route for him. We've already talked about all of his skills and classes, but now we're going to go more in depth into what is actually the best plan for him. So as you can see, that is a freaking mess of classes. It looks completely unorganized. Let me sort them out into groups here. Bam, there we go. Now I've divided them up by class. You can see Assassin is in 2 circles, which means it shares both the Thief and the Myrmidon tree. And basically, I decided to organize like this today just to try something new and to confuse the heck out of you guys in the most ridiculous way possible. So you're welcome for that. Let's add some names to these classes and how they connect and stuff here. And now let's get into my actual recommendations. We're going to start at Myrmidon as always. If you can manage to start somewhere else, I don't believe you. So anyway, we're going to start Myrmidon, go to Wyvern Rider immediately. That class has great stat growth, as we mentioned earlier, for Lon'qu, and has great maximum stat modifiers too. Not that that really matters, because it's not the final class, obviously. I would really recommend going to level 20 in Wyvern Rider, just because it gives you a great chance to get some nice stat upgrades while you're in there. Next, we're going to change to Griffin Rider. Now, this makes me a little sad because Wyvern Lord definitely has the better stats for him, but Griffin Rider has the better skills. Deliverer can be helpful in certain situations. It's a very situational skill. Whether or not you want to use it is kind of your shtick. I probably won't use it much because he'll usually be on the back end of my team because he's not as good as some of the children units, but he's still passable and it could be helpful, especially if you're not playing at the super uber tier. Griffin Rider also gives him Lancebreaker, which forms part of a kind of mini combo that I'm going to put together at the end of this. Now, you can choose whether or not you really want to use this, but I feel like for him in his final class, it will be useful. Then last, we're going to have him head over to Swordmaster. This will be his final class. By the way, you may not see it on here. I didn't put it on here. Dreadfighter, I didn't even mention it yet, but there really isn't much use for him in Dreadfire. Since he doesn't have Gale Force, Aggressor is kind of a moot point, and Resistance plus 10 could be nice, so if you really need to level him up some more, going in there and grabbing Resistance plus 10 is not a bad idea at all. As for Swordmaster though, you'll pick up Astra, definitely use that, and you can use Swordfair if you want to, but I feel like even all stats plus 2 would be better in general skill. Now, basically, the build I'm talking about here is using a few specific items with Lon'qu to make him really scary. For instance, a superior edge with his moveset, with his skills, would give him an advantage against axes, just naturally. He would have Breaker against lances, and he would have Breaker against other swords because he's wielding a superior edge. This is a really powerful combination. Being able to have an advantage over all weapon types is really scary. Now, another thing you can do with him is give him the soul weapon, the soul sword, and this, oh my god, this is so good with him. Give it the whole Vantage plus soul combo is excellent. Unfortunately, all these awesome plans and stuff are kind of hard to pull off with Lon'qu since he doesn't have arm thrift or even have access to it. So you'll have to keep a hammer and staff on hand at all times just to make sure none of your really sweet fat loot breaks on you, and that would suck. So lastly, he's also the best wielder for Amatsu, or Amats, it would be the real translation. Now, he's not, technically speaking, he couldn't wield it better than some other people, but I think he's probably the best wielder of Amats because he's one of the few people I'd actually recommend going into Swordmaster as the final class for. You could have just about anyone use Amatsu that is a Swordmaster. It might work as an assassin. I don't think so, but it might. But he is really good because he actually works really well as a sword master, and that's kind of fun. I know personally I like having characters in their original like promotion of their final class. You know, like he was a Myrmidon, now he's a sword master. It just feels right as opposed to him being like, I don't know, Wyvern Lord or Trickster. It just doesn't feel quite right, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so yeah, I guess my final recommendation would be Limit Breaker, all stats +2, Astra, Lancebreaker, and Vantage. So, with that being said, let's move on to supports and see what lies in store from there.
So let's talk about supports last. There's not much to say here, as usual. It's a pretty short segment because honestly, it's not important. But I feel like I should probably talk about it because sometimes there's a note or two. Anyway, Lon'qu, like I said earlier, has a really interesting support with Thardra. I highly recommend seeing it up to level A. You don't need to get the S support if you don't want to. And his support with Pan is quite interesting, both for him and Pan, but especially Pan. I believe his support with Cordelia is a relatively romantic one, and but it also focuses on the old trope of like, you know, them training together or whatever, you know, like so many supports in Fire Emblem revolve around like one of them training or them sparring or whatever. And yeah, this is one of those. It's more interesting than usual, but still. Other than that, he has lots of supports, man. Just choose whoever you want. He doesn't have any really interesting skills to pass on at all. Literally, none of his classes are restricted by gender, so it doesn't really matter, even in the slightest. I guess I would probably pair him up with a mother that already had Gale Force then, you know, or had access to it, or doesn't have access to it at all. Like Muriel would be fine, Alyssa would be fine, so many options would be fine. It's just not like Noe and the ones that could possibly have their daughters have Gale Force that the father gave him Pegasus Knight. We've been over this, right? I mean, I don't have to explain it all again. It's the Pegasus, it's the Gale Force factor, you know, so. Team Gale Force! Wah! Yeah! Oh my god. What am I doing with my life? Thank you guys so much for watching another Fire Emblem character guide. I'm Jake, XepherGames. I can't thank you guys enough, seriously, like, we've recently passed 90 subscribers. Yes! Well on my way to the 100 I was hoping to get by literally the end of college. My whole plan was, oh, by the end of college, let's get 100 subscribers. I'm almost there already. And I'm leaving in like 2 weeks. That's unfortunately the other piece of news I have to tell you guys. I am going off to college in 2 weeks, or less probably, because it's gonna take me like 5 days from when I'm recording this for you to actually see it. So it's probably gonna be about a week from now. And that's gonna be freaking nuts. There's going to be a time when I'm not gonna be uploading anything for a few days when I'm getting settled in. And then it's going to probably slow down, and I'm really sorry about this, guys, but I'm probably not going to be able to do as much stuff because I'm going to be freaking busy. I have to do classes and everything, and in addition to playing games and stuff, and it's going to be hard. I'm definitely going to try to keep up with this channel because you guys are awesome. I've loved doing this. It's been one of my favorite experiences in the past year or so, and I wouldn't give it up for anything. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to keep trying it. I'm planning to keep doing my Let's Plays, but there are going to be a couple that are going to be delayed somewhat because I may not have the proper systems anymore. It's going to be very complicated. In any case, Fire Emblem guides will definitely keep coming, and we'll see about the other games. It'll just be, it's a big toss-up right now. Who knows what's going to happen? So I'm hoping to keep going with Soccer Wars. It might take a little longer to get back into Baten Kaitos, but it'll probably happen eventually. In any case, I'm also planning on getting a Wii U, probably sometime Christmas time-ish. Not for my parents. Shut up, I'm going to buy with my own money. I'm a big boy. But, I'm going to buy a Wii U, get an HD recording device, and then we're going to play some freaking Super Smash Bros. When it comes out. And, of course, Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem. All that great stuff. That's going to be one of the best times on my channel. I can promise you that. But it's going to be a while. For now, please put up with whatever I can get on the channel. I love you guys, but not in a weird way. Just like I love the way the channel has turned out, and now I'm going into that weird place. where my voice changes for no reason all of a sudden, and well, Rush, all you know this is. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye and good night from XepherGames.